Hello everyone, Mr. Science Mover here. And today is going to be a tutorial on how to mod Palworld, specifically model swaps, static meshes, skeletal meshes, texture swaps, and also some of the pitfalls that you might run into while trying to do that. So the first things we're going to need are a bunch of tools that I have here. So the most essential is going to be fmodel. If you want to edit any of the files in terms of like parameters in game, so like adding more health or something like that, then you'll want UAsset GUI. We're going to want UModel to open up any files we export with fmodel individually. We're going to need Unreal Engine, so I'll talk you through how to install that. Blender UMap is a plugin for Blender that lets you open UMap files, which I find really helpful for picturing the entire map together. Then we have a mappings file, which you can actually generate on your own, but I'll leave that in the description as well. And Unreal Pack, which is a basic default Unreal Engine tool. So once we have all of those, we can go ahead and start modding. So today I'm going to be working on a Hololive mod. So I've already made one for my lovely Gargura in the background here. But our next one's going to be a model swap of a Chickapee. So I have my model here. I have my VX and my texture. So that's going to be the model that I swap in for the Chickapee. Now we have to actually go get that model. That's the first thing. So we're going to open fmodel. And if you haven't opened fmodel before, you're going to be greeted by probably a blank screen that will look something like this. So what this will do is ask you to detect where your game is. Now Palworld runs on Unreal Engine 5.1, so we're going to want to select the drop down and click Unreal Engine 5.1, and then we're going to want to give it the directory where the packs folder is. So that's going to be wherever your Palworld Steam directory is. So this is where my Steam library is. Steam Apps Common Palworld is the Palworld directory, and Pal Content Packs, which if we go there, I like to keep a shortcut handy right here so I can open up my packs folder. And I already have my two Hololive mods already, and you should have this PAL Windows pack in that location. So once we hit OK on that, it might ask you to restart. And once we do that, we can open our PAL Windows pack, and this should populate all of the content that is inside. Now, instead of diving directly into this, what we're going to want to do on top of this is actually go to settings, and under local mapping file, we're going to check that, and we're going to set the mapping file to the mapping file that I have in the description. And what that will do is it will allow you to read the files. So without that, all you can really do is export them. So then you'll have to read them using UAsset GUI or UModel. What this does is it allows you to do it right here in fmodel. So what we're going to do right now is, because I'm trying to get a Chickapee model, I'll go to Pal, Model, Character, Monster, and I'm going to have to find which one is the Chickapee. I think it's Chicken Pal. Oh, so that opens right up. And so you can see that is the Chickapee. And so I'm going to close that, and I'm going to actually select the entire folder and right click and export folders packages. Now, if you don't have an export output directory, you should set that here. So mine is in my working directory under the output folder. So when I hit that button, it exported my Chickpea model to that folder. So I can go to fmodel output and exports. So now we're going to have to traverse the tree. So pal content, pal model, character, monster, and chicken pal will be right here. So these are all of our assets for the Chickpea. The most important one is going to be this SK, is the skeletal mesh. And these down here, the textures, the T's. These three up here, the materials and the physics asset, we don't need those at all. So the most important will be these down here. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to save folders package models to PSK. So that will give us that skeletal mesh. And we're going to save folders packages textures to PNG. And if we go back to that folder, we'll have all of our assets that we need right next to the original files. So now we have our PSK and our PNGs. We will open Blender, and we're going to, well, first what I like to do is move all the stuff that I need to my working directory. So my working directory is out here where my KFP model is. So this will be Chickpea stuff. I'm just going to put that there. So now I'll go to Blender. I'm going to import a PSK. Now, if you don't have a PSK option enabled, so you've never done this before, we'll go to User Preferences. And under Add-ons, we'll search for PSK, and we'll want to hit the PSK importer. Right now, I'm actually working on Blender 2.7, 2.79, but this works on every version of Blender. So whichever one you prefer. So once we enable that, we're going to go ahead and import our PSK. Our chicken pal. Now, one thing that's very important to note is that it might import at 100 times scale. So we can see like this grid here is like really small compared to the skeleton. So I'm going to scale the skeleton down by 100, which gives us a much more reasonable sized Chickpea. So what we want to do from here is import our new model that we're going to use. Okay, so I now have my model in that I want to map onto the Chickpea. I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up really quickly. Okay, so now I have my model that I'm trying to import all clean. And what I want to do is put my textures onto him. Alright, so now I have my cute looking KFP here. Fortunately, my KFP actually comes with a skeleton. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that our model has a skeleton so that we can pose it into about the same pose as the one we're trying to map to. I'm not really in a position to teach how to add a rig right now, but basically you just want to make it as close to your starting model as possible, so that we can go ahead and pose this skeleton in such a way that it matches the original model perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so I have my model mostly overlapping the Chickpea model. We can see it's kind of not completely there, but that's okay for right now. So what we're going to want to do from here is we want to first apply the armature of the model that we're adding. So we take our model and go under modifiers and hit apply. So now we can completely remove, or well, first we want to actually apply this scale of the armature, if we've done that at all. And now that we've separated our model from the armature, we can go ahead and just delete that armature outright. So now we're going to have to go into the vertex data of our new model and remove all of the vertex groups. So we can do that very quickly. We just delete all groups, delete all those vertex groups. And we're going to click on our model, then click on our Chickpea model and hit Control-Shift-T, which brings up transfer mesh data. We're going to transfer vertex groups, and we're going to transfer all layers. And what that now does is it makes it so that these groups that we had just deleted are now on our custom object. So from here we can go ahead and delete our Chickpea model. We don't need that anymore. And we're going to add a modifier to our custom model for an armature and set it to the Chickpea armature. And then we'll go ahead and parent it, set parent to bone. And important, before we keep going, we want to rename this armature to armature. For whatever reason, Unreal doesn't like it when we don't do that. So from here, we can simply pose our Chickpea armature and it will move our custom armature. Now, it might not move in the way that you initially expect it to. That's completely fixable and up to taste, honestly. So this leg is kind of wonky. But what we can do is go back and weight paint this. So if you're content with what you have, that's great. But I'm going to go ahead and actually weight paint this model based on this skeleton. As you can see here, we have a lot of rough edges on the weight painting on this. And what that means is that when I rotate this, you can see it kind of scrunches up a little bit at the top. And that's what happens when you have uneven weight painting. So one way to get rid of that is to actually just take what we have and smooth it out a bit. And that's a lot smoother. Actually, it looks like my model has some divisions in the mesh, so I'm going to go ahead and just merge all of that together. Make sure we have no issues there. So now we have this one bone is pretty smooth, but got more than one bone. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest here. Okay, so now that I've smoothed everything out to my liking, we can take a look at the wing. Looks pretty nice. Looks pretty nice. Everything's moving pretty solidly. Oh, I guess I missed one. Just gonna go ahead and smooth that out. I think the opposite side too. Smooth that out. And we should be good now. So I'm going to exit weight paint mode. Now we have our fully rigged model with the original armature. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. And before we export, we want to make sure that everything's at 0, 0, 0, no rotation, scale 1. Same thing for the armature. So we'll note that at the beginning, we scaled the armature down by 100, so now we got to scale it back up by 100. Now we have our official model. So I'm going to take our model and our armature. We'll export as FBX. We want to export the two selected objects. This is very important. We're going to set our scale to 0.01 because that's what we had to scale the model down by to make it a normal size. And then under armature, we're going to uncheck add leaf bones. And we're going to want to export that as the name of the original model, which would be you can go back here, and the name is sk underscore chicken pal. So that's what we're going to call this. .fbx. Alright, so after that, we're completely done with Blender. We're going to want to open up Unreal Engine. Now, the way you install Unreal Engine is through the Epic Games Launcher. We're going to open up the Epic Games Launcher, go to Unreal Engine, go to Library, and click plus, and make sure that you're using 5.1. If you're installing, I have this installed already, but if you're installing for the first time, you're going to click this arrow and select the version, which should be 5.1.1. We'll install that, hit launch, create a new project. I have one right here already that is already open. This is using my previous mod. So we're going to open up the content drawer, and we're going to have to take our model that we just exported and put it in the exact place that we got it from. So I'm going to have to look back at fmodel and see where I got that chicken pal PSK from. So the path is pal content. That pal content is this content folder right here. So from there we have pal model, character monster, and chicken pal. So under character monster, we're going to need a new folder here called chicken pal. Create a folder for our chicken pal. We're going to drag our chickpea model right in there. Our new FBX goes right there. And we'll hit import all. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to import our not only our mesh, but our textures, its materials, and the skeleton. So what we're going to have to do after that is move everything and name everything properly. So we have this content browser popped open. We have our chicken pal here. We can go ahead and save that. We have our material here, which is going to have to be the same name as the material in fmodel. So we'll open this up and you can see the chicken pal material name is body. So we're going to, we can actually just copy package name and rename this to my chicken pal body. And we'll save that. We want to rename the texture. Again, with F model, we're going to take the chicken pal body texture, copy the package name, we'll rename this. We have a physics asset. Physics asset's important. It allows it to use physics. Again, we'll check F model. This is the name of the physics asset. We'll copy that. Rename this to the physics asset name. And this is the hard part, which is the skeleton. And the skeleton actually is going to rest in a different folder for these monsters. It's going to be under Pal Model Character Skeleton. And we can see in here it's going to be Character Skeleton Chicken Pal. And it's gonna, this is what the name is going to be. So we'll make sure that it's the same name. Create a new folder here for our chicken pal. Once we have that, we can take our skeleton and put it in the proper location. So if we did all that properly, everything should be set up. And from here, we can go ahead and cook our mod. So before we do that, we're going to want to make sure our cooking settings are proper. So we can look up, search for pack file, make sure use pack file is checked, should be on by default. And we're going to want to look up cook and make sure it says cook everything in the project content directory. And once we have both of those, we'll go ahead right here where it says platforms, we go to Windows and cook content. Now, once we cook, this is going to take a while, but you can just leave it, and once it's finished, it'll make a noise, and that'll let you know that all your files are ready. Now, once our content is all cooked, we're going to want to open up our Unreal project in a file explorer, and we're going to go into the saved folder and the cooked folder, and this is going to be where all our cooked data is. So we're going to go into the folder for whatever our project name is, content, and then this is where all of the content that we created is. So this is the pal folder, model, character, monster, and chicken pal is what we want. So these are going to be the files that we want. Noteworthy, we don't need the skeleton for the actual mod, but we do need the skeleton to be there in Unreal so that our mesh knows where to look for the skeleton in the actual game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy the files that we need. So like I said, we don't need the materials or the physics asset. So we're going to take the texture and the skeletal mesh, and I'm just going to yoink those. And we're going to go to my workspace, and we're going to create a folder, and I'm just going to call it mod so I can keep track of it. And we're going to call the mod itself something like KFP GKP, and make sure that it ends in _p so that the game knows to load the mod as a patch so that it will overwrite any default game files. So from there, we're going to have to recreate the file structure that we just did. So we're going to go pal content and make sure you get the spellings correct. So that's very important. We're just going to paste those files right here. So we have our texture and we have our mesh, and we should be good to go. So now we have our full mod packed in a folder. We're going to go to our Unreal pack, And we're just going to drag this folder onto the Unreal Pack with compression.bat. And it should tell us if everything is fine. It should say it's added our files to the pack, and we have our mod right here. So we can go ahead and take that and just drop that into the games files right here, and we should be good to go. So I'm just going to launch Palworld and we'll see what happens. Alright, so now I'm in the game. I'm going to throw out my chickpea, and we can see that it uses the new model and animations. You can see there's a little bit of weirdness on the coat, but that's okay. We could just go back and remove any faces we don't want exposed on the inside. But yeah, I hope everybody found this helpful, and go make some mods.